Hello. I know I'm off on the day, but I've been working. So this is I'm going to do another video. This one on someone who some of the older generation might remember, but people my age, you don't really hear anything from her anymore. Name is Melanie. She was a singer-songwriter during the Woodstock era, was made famous at Woodstock for her performance. Um, and she was sort of lumped in with that crowd during that late 60s, early 70s period. Had several massive big hits, and at point, I think it was 1971, she was voted the most popular female artist in the world, or at least in America. I think some American poll. So, and yet said it, you don't really hear her stuff very much anymore. You hear it occasionally, but so the first records, there's Born to Be and Affectionately Melanie, or I think they later just released it under a self-titled, are the pre-Woodstock albums that she did. They're very interesting. Melanie has a very strange singing voice, very strong, very kind of has a certain rasp or weird inflection to it. Once you get past how kind of different her voice sounds, she is a very interesting songwriter. A lot of her stuff is very personal and kind of very introspective. She was famous for having this very big guitar that she'd play, and was very kind of boisterous and big about her sound, even despite the point that it was just her and a guitar. The first album, Born to Be, has great cover of Mr. Tambourine Man, the Bob Dylan song. And it's more like a ballad, which is kind of interesting to hear it like that. Had I think it was Bobo's Party was a hit in like France or something like that. There's a couple of good performances of that, and it has one of her best songs, which is Close to It All. It, and then Affectionately Melanie has Tuning My Guitar, which she played a lot live, and Beautiful People, which is another one of her big hits, and sort of about, you know, people who are good looking and how they seem to be off in another plane of existence because they're pretty, and kind of what that's, you know kind of an interesting take on that, sort of one of her definitive songs. And then we get to her big breakthrough, which was after Woodstock happened, which is Candles in the Rain. Candles in the Rain had the lead, the title track is Lay Down, was, I think, a top 10 single. And this is an excellent record. It has great cover of Carolina in My Mind, the James Taylor song. What Have They Done to My Song, Ma, which is kind of about the music business and how it can take music and turn it into something that it's not, and just by nature of it being a business. And great cover of Ruby Tuesday from the Stones, the Rolling Stones on there. Much more pop record. The first two records were a little more kind of jazzy and sort of were a little more left of center. This was her coming into her own as sort of a pop star. Then she does Leftover Wine, which was a live record, I believe, at Carnegie Hall, which is a very good live record. Has some good stuff in it, which had a single, Peace Will Come According to Plan, which was a standalone single that she there's a great version of it on of her at the first Glastonbury Festival in 1971, I think. We then get to The Good Book, which is a little more kind of quiet and introspective. It's more ballads on this record. Babe Rainbow, and The Saddest Thing are on this record. She does a version of the Nickel song on here, which was sort of about how, again, on the music business end, that people in the music business tend to, as she puts it, they put in a nickel hoping for a dollar song. Nickelodeons back in the day used to, you could put in a nickel and it would sing you. The little thing would play you a song, and it was always kind of a cheap little itsy bitsy little song. And I said more of a ballady record, but is still has some great songs on it. And then we go to her other big album during this period, which is Gather Me, down here. Gather Me had a couple of big hit singles off of it. Ring the Living Bell, which I think was a pretty big hit, and then Brand New Key, which if you've heard anything from her, would probably be that. Brand New Key went to #1 back in 1971, and is a bit of a novelty song. It was featured in Boogie Nights, for those who know that movie. It's the Heather Graham's character. It was sort of like her, I think was her, I've heard is her like theme song or whatever you want to call it in that movie. Seen it multiple other times, but probably if you've heard anything, it's from that. This is, again, a very good pop, folk type record, full of great songs. At this point, she changed record labels, and so the record label went about releasing kind of an outtakes and rarities compilation called Gardens in the City. This was some leftover songs from her previous albums, and a couple of songs she contributed to a soundtrack from that time period called RPM. I don't know anything about the movie, but there's some it's a pretty good record. There's some good stuff on here. There's a good version of Lay Lady Lay from Dylan, and Jigsaw Puzzle also from the Stones on this. And then we get to when she got this new record label. She was Melanie had married her manager and her producer rather, and had become a mother in the meantime, about 70-71 time period, and kind of was a little bit more kind of not wanting to be a pop star as much, wanting to, more take it a little more seriously and a little more, take a little more care in her work. And she comes out with Stone Ground Words. There's some great performances of her doing some songs off of this on the Johnny Carson show, which you can find on YouTube. There's some very good performances of Together Alone, the first song on this, and Do You Believe, which are, I would say, some of the better songs on this record. There's some excellence, as is an excellent record. And also this version, this and the next 3 albums they've released on a record label. You can find all these relatively easy on Amazon. Has a couple of bonus tracks. Bitter Bad is a bonus track, which was a standalone single. Very good, more folky kind of record. And then we get to Madrugada, I believe is how you pronounce this. This record, half of it is covers. The first half of the record is covers, and then the second half is her songs. There's some interesting. The covers on this are interesting. There's Lover's Cross, which is probably the only time I've ever seen anyone cover Jim Croce on a thing. It's an interesting version of the song. Wild Horses from the Stones. I Think It's Gonna Rain Today, from Randy Newman. Will You Love Me Tomorrow? But her songs on the record are very interesting as well. Love to Lose Again, The Actress, Pine and Feather. It's interesting. It's a very interesting record, and it's a little more kind of. It's interesting hearing the two sides, the covers and and the originals. Then get into As I See It Now. This record, I remember this record is very interesting. It has really her embracing motherhood and kind of being, by this point, it's very, adult and very, it's just a very well put together record. Yankee Man, Record Machine, great cover of Don't Think Twice, It's All Right from Dylan. I believe Autumn Lady, I remember being great off this record. There's a funny, impromptu cover of La Bamba on this, which is interesting as a bonus track as well. This is the next one. The last one for that record label is Sunset and Other Beginnings, which is, I think it was the last one on this record label before she moved. Sun and the Moon, I remember being excellent off this record. There's a couple covers on this. Perceive It is also on this record, which I think there's a couple of versions live of that are really good. Again, just another solid adult contemporary kind of folky record. Very, very good. We get to probably my favorite of her albums, which is Photograph, featuring this very striking photo on the cover of her. This version is a 2 CD set done by a great record label called Rhino Handmade. They do a lot of very interesting deluxe versions of things. This is an excellent record. Cyclone, If I Needed You, Letter, Groundhog Day, a different version of the Nickel song, which incorporating the song that sort of inspired it, sort of Secret of Darkness, Save Me, Photograph. I mean, it's just chock full of great songs, and has a whole disc of bonus tracks on it of other songs. It's an excellent record. If you're gonna listen to anything, I think this is a great place to start, because this is an amazing album. In the late 70s, she sort of began really fading out of, she had her heyday in the early 70s. By the mid 70s, she had her fan base, but outside of that, it wasn't really doing very much. This is Phonogenic, Not Another Pretty Face, which is I like the title. This has sort of beginning of the disco period, so 77, 78. This has some good songs on it. We Can Work It Out, California Dreamin'. There's an amazing version of a song called I'd Rather Leave While I'm in Love, which was a big hit, I think the following year, around the same time, from, Rita Coolidge. A lot of people know that version of the song. The version on here is excellent. I love this version of it. It's not a great album. It has a couple of kind of whatever songs because of the disco influence, but it still has some very solid songs on it. And last proper album I'm going to mention, mainly because after this it becomes kind of spotty on whether you can find them or not. Some of them are available on iTunes and things, but Ballroom Streets, which is a live record, sort of one of those live in the studio with an audience kind of thing, so it wasn't properly like in a concert hall or something. It has some great songs on it and some very interesting versions of some of her older songs. Running After Love, Miranda, I think, are some that are the new songs that aren't on any of the other albums. It's worth looking up for those songs alone. And I said after this point she kind of stopped being a lot of the '80s records are very hard to find, and I've heard some of them online. Uh, Still have some great songs on them. This was the only other one. She's still making records today. This one is a weird compilation that I found, which has this is sort of has a bunch of this is sort of like a greatest hits. This I think it was '93. I think this came out. This has like a greatest hits sort of thing of the '80s, late '70s into the '80s, maybe into the even in the early '90s stuff. There's some excellent songs on here. State Sail, Silence is King, My Rock and Roll Heart, Hard Rain, Freedom Knows My Name. Um, this also has some. She did a like silver anniversary thing. She did like an unplugged record, which has some interesting stuff on it as well. But said her last, she came out with another album just in 2012, and she has a channel of performances and videos and stuff on YouTube. You can find. I think it's on. I think I have favorited it on my page. If you can, I don't know if you can see those, but very interesting singer-songwriter, worth looking up if you like the folk scene and singers. She's a fascinating person to look up. So that's Melanie, and I will see you all sometime, probably in another week or so. Thank you. I will see you.